I'll join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. So, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's funny, I woke up this morning, all of a sudden I had this some pressure thing on the bottom of my foot. I couldn't really put my foot down. My first thought was like, okay, this is fun. What's this going to be like? And then, of course, I just started dealing with it. And, of course, in my head realized, well, that's what I'm going to talk about when I sit down today. Things just happen in life. They just happen. We get these ideas of karma and what we deserve and this complete misunderstanding of all of that. And, what we like, what we don't like, what we want, what we don't want, these stories, these ideas of everything in our life that we want to be a certain way. And it never works out that way. And so for me, practicing this a long time, you just begin to wake up every day and realize, okay, what's this like? And it doesn't matter what this is, right? We don't typically question so much other than absolute shock when good things happen to us, But things just happen. And when they do, we have a couple of choices of how we deal with them. We have many choices of how we deal with them, but we embrace them, we accept them, we learn to be with them, or we resist them, we fight them, we struggle with them, we make excuses, we make stories. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Learning to be with things as they are is, to me, what this practice is about. And that doesn't mean that everything is going to be great. We've all in this room had so many challenges, obstacles, difficulties in our lives, right? But you know what? Here you are. You've made it to this point. So you've obviously survived all of them somehow. And there will be more challenges and difficulties and struggles. And just like you survived all of them in the past, you'll survive the ones in the future. But learning to be with them, that's really the challenge. And I think the beauty of this practice, because we get lost in the stories in our head of, my whole life and this, and I've had this experience and that experience. And when this happened to me, when that happened to me, and they didn't do this, or they should have done that. And we end up torturing ourselves with those stories. Has anyone in this room had their life work out exactly how they thought it should be? No, really? Because I woke up today and said, I really hope I can't walk on my left foot. That would be phenomenal. The question is, when things happen, say, okay, now what? Now what? Well, I can't really put pressure on my foot. Well, at least I can walk. I can't really put pressure on my foot. Well, at least I can sit down and talk. I can't really put pressure on my foot. Well, at least I can be here. And so I've learned that when you take a little more of a positive approach and mindset towards all the challenges and difficulties you face, it makes getting through them a lot easier. It doesn't fix it, right? Me sitting here being with you all doesn't mean all of a sudden my foot's going to feel better, but at least be with it. You know? And that, I'm using this as a real live example, but what I'm really talking about is the mental, emotional pain that we carry with us our whole lives. Physical stuff comes and goes. Some stays longer than others. Some never goes away. But the mental, emotional struggles and challenges and difficulties, we tend to keep with us a long time. So learn to be with those as well. So with that, now that you guys have shown up, I was just waiting for you so we can start meditation practice. We'll do a meditation. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences, most likely. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds, right? Movement. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Most important with the practice, don't expect anything from it. We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. Posture, you want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable for you. If you're on the benches or chairs, also just trying to sit up straight. I will guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Going throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought? Return attention, focus to the breath. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgment from the practice, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly.
As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. Most important, practice meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit, the hands across the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samutpata, dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than anyone in this room who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us in this room, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every day. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. Meditation is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It's waking up to this present moment. Whatever challenges, difficulties, stresses, pressures, conflicts, battles you have in your life, they don't go away just because you sit silently for 20 minutes. They're all still there waiting for you. No problems in your life have been solved, I'm sorry. But the question now is, what type of mind do you take into all the challenges and difficulties and conflicts and struggles that you're facing in your life? And if you bring a mind that's a little calmer, a little clearer, a little more settled, then we tend to respond to those situations a little bit better. And in fact, many, not all, but many of the problems and difficulties and challenges and struggles in our lives occur because we acted in a way where our minds were not steady, they were not calm, they were not clear. It came from a place of greed, anger, and ignorance. The Buddha said this is the cause of our suffering. Often greedy, often angry, often ignorant. Not anyone in this room, I'm just talking about everybody else. Out there. All those greedy, angry, ignorant people outside. So this practice helps you become aware of that. So then when you go through your day, you tend to hopefully create less drama in your life. And the existing drama in your life, you learn to respond to it in a little bit of a healthier way. This was probably maybe 5 years ago, and I was leading a prison meditation class. And such a simple expression, but I'd never heard before, said this way. And the guy was sharing some stuff, and he said the things he's learned is nothing changes if nothing changes. And it's just something about that was so beautiful. And, we can often, as people, complicate life. As I was speaking about earlier, kind of point fingers and blame everybody else. But the reality is, if we want change in our life, then we have to change. So, another favorite expression of mine is, wherever you go, there you are, that I've heard over the years. So, often we think if we escape from the current situation and we go fly halfway around the world and sit on a mountaintop in Nepal somewhere, that all of a sudden everything's going to be calm and peaceful. You're just someone who spent a lot of money to fly halfway around the world and sit on a mountaintop in Nepal. And same crazy mind you got with you now just went with you. So learn to be with things as they are, to embrace things as they are. And last thing I'll say on that is often we're trying to fix things, as opposed to just being with them. It was funny, and I'll just share this and then I'll open up to questions, but as soon as I started sharing, that I was having pain, I just had this flash in my head of all these people coming up to me afterwards telling me everything I could do or should do or go here or go there, fix this. I know we have some medical professionals, but and all of a sudden I had this flash in my head of all these people coming up to me saying this stuff, and then my response to that was, I don't want to fix it. I just want to be with it. So that's what I've learned from this practice, is to stop trying to fix everything and just be with it. Now, there are times you need to fix some things. So if you never heard me and you don't know me, I don't mean just, there are times to go to doctors and things like that. So, but there's also times to be with things and see what they're all about. So I'll stop there, just open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And anyone who came in and threw themselves in the back and is really uncomfortable back there are plenty of chairs up here if you want to come forward. You're welcome to. So questions, meditation, Buddhist practice. Go here and then here, yeah.
Just a comment, I just like to give a shout out to you and everyone here. I appreciate the videotapes online because I can't come here all the time.
Yeah.
That's a great comfort and learning experience. And it makes me feel a little bit like I'm here, even though I'm not here. It really helps out. And then if you don't understand, you can go over and over again.
Exactly.
And everybody needs to go over and over. I should have did. So thank you.
My pleasure. I say the same thing over and over again every week anyways. Now you can just hit, now you can watch it over and over. Yeah, on loop, right? I say the same thing, you can watch over and over, yeah. I mean, since we started that probably 6 months ago, it's been nice, we have it up on YouTube, so we record these on YouTube, and for a lot of people who can't get here, it's great. A lot of people have been around the community for years, moved away, it's great. I thought maybe if we just did that, y'all would stop showing up, but I guess it keeps showing up, so thanks. Yeah, Jim.
I wasn't going to tell you about a fix, but I was going to tell you that at your age, you're just at the beginning of being.
Oh, yeah. And that's kind of, yes, I agree 100%, kind of a quick, we talk about karma and kind of the direction that we're headed in, and my dad at 76 years old, so back stuff not so great. We have a good friend of ours for many years. He's acupuncturist and taught at PCOM for 20 years. And so a while back he said, I was talking about my dad. He's and my dad's not someone who would acupuncture, that's weird stuff, And so I convinced him to go see him. So anyways, fast forward, and Casey, who saw my dad, came in and said, "Hey, Jeff, I've seen where you're headed, so if you ever need, some treatment, let me know." So yeah, just the beginning, my friend. So I'm practicing now, being with all the stuff that's going to stop working at some point. A lot to do with it. Yes. Thank you. Questions, thoughts? Yeah. And we, 1 second in the back there. And we struggle so much with, again, I was talking physical, but mental, emotional pain. Through all stages of our lives, we go through so much of that. And again, yes, of course, medically things to take care of, but a lot of times the physical, the mental, emotional pain, you can't fix that because it's usually tied to stuff that happened in the past. And we want to fix the past and change the past and regret the past. And that causes that current trauma, the current mental, emotional pain. And so being with that is so critical. Yes, in the back, I just saw a hand. Yeah.
Can you expand on the ignorance part?
Sure. I don't think we have enough time, though. The question was, can I expand on the ignorance part? me sum that up in about 3 hours. The Buddha, so the Four Noble Truths, those who are unaware, I'll touch on this very briefly. The first thing he taught at Deer Park, the image right up there above the exit sign, is him giving his first teaching. It's called the first turning of the Dharma wheel. And there he sits teaching his first 5 disciples. And he taught what's called the Four Noble Truths. A lot of people tell you that all of Buddhist teachings really just stem from the Four Noble Truths. You have 2,500 years of Buddhism that's spread. He taught for 45 years, and you have different cultures and languages and everything that kind of meshed with Buddhism, but it really all begins from there. There's no schools of Buddhism that are like fighting over, are these Four Noble Truths different? They're there, right? And the first one is life is suffering. Doesn't mean all of life sucks, right? Suffering is such a heavy word. There was a guy a couple years ago, and he said in college, 20, 30 years ago, he read page 1 that said life is suffering, and he never read page 2. And it took him 30 years or whatever to come back to Buddhism, And so life is filled, the word is dukkha, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction, right? It's too hot, it's too cold, I don't like my shirt, I don't like this food. We just constantly complain, right? Maybe not any of you, but, and so we're filled every day with discomfort. And the second thing he said is, what's the cause? The cause is greed, anger, and ignorance. This is the cause of our suffering. I'll finish them, then I'll come back to ignorance. The third one is there's an ending to this. Nirvana, liberation, freedom from suffering. This is the beauty of it, that we don't have to live constantly in a state of misery. And the fourth one is the path, and this is the Eightfold Path. Correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. This is basically your karma, your actions, your behaviors, the way you respond to the world, the way you respond to yourself, everything you think, everything you say, everything you do. This is the Eightfold Path. You can Google all of that. It's free. And most things that pull up on Google will be pretty good. Stay in the first 2 pages, search. After that, it gets a little crazy. So back to the question of ignorance. Greed you overcome with generosity. Anger you overcome with compassion. And ignorance you overcome with wisdom. So the funny thing is, often over the years, people have asked me, how do you define, or how would the Buddha define ultimate wisdom? And the Buddha praised Subhuti, one of his disciples, for his discourse on emptiness, which to me is really the ultimate wisdom teachings. And he said nothing about wisdom. So what that means for me as a practitioner is I'm very clear when I'm ignorant. I don't know what ultimate wisdom is, but I'm very clear what ignorance is. And ignorance is anything, well, everything, first of all. Everything is ignorant. I know that might be a little shocking to all of you. I'm sitting here with like 80 people, and I'm like, you are ignorance. That doesn't feel good, does it? Nobody showed up here to be called ignorance. But ignorant, ignoring the true nature of reality. Anyone have a perception of anything or anyone? And are you foolish enough to actually think that your perception is correct? Oh, yeah, good. Usually you don't get as many yeses. Welcome back, normal yes. So the ignorance is ignoring the true nature of reality, meaning that we have a perception of reality, as does the person next to you, in front of you and behind you, and all your family members and all your relationship partners and all the strangers on the streets. We all have our own perceptions. The ignorance is that we think and we defend and we fight and we try to prove and we argue that our perception is correct. That's where it starts. The Buddha said the root cause of suffering is the sense of self, pride, ego. And so with that sense of self, that creates a whole life filled of experiences and views and perceptions, we tend to fixate on those and think that they're correct. Ignorance is shattering all of that and recognizing that your perception is only yours. So that's to me where it really starts. You get into like simple things of, to continue on kind of the thought of ignorance, is looking at intention and the way we act. Again, I always talk about karma, which is what we think, what we say, and what we do. Karma is not what you deserve. It's not what goes around comes around. Karma is your action. It's what you bring into the world. And so what we think and what we say and what we do, is it driven by a sense of self, pride, ego? Or is it only done to benefit ourselves? Or is it done to maybe benefit others as well. And so if everything we do is just geared towards me, then that's a very ignorant view that says you think you're most important. You know, most people don't show up here every day because they want to make sure life is better for others. Some of you do. Okay? But just ask yourself, did you come here because you want to make life better for others, or did you come here because you want to make life better for you? And can you eventually make the connection that if you make life better for you, ultimately what that's doing is it's making life better for others. So it's really a mix of both. You don't ignore yourself. You are there, you exist. You exist differently from how you perceive yourself to be. You know, if 10 people describe you, they'll describe you 10 completely different ways, which will all be different from your definition of yourself. So, does that help?
Yeah.
Yep. So are you still ignorant?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Glad I cleared that up. Yeah. Is that I can't see, I just see a hand. Is that a follow-up question? Go ahead.
Yeah, where does loss fit in?
Where does loss fit in?
Yeah.
Like I lost my wallet?
Or like loss of like any kind of loss.
It fits into life.
Of those three
Oh, you're saying where does loss fit into greed, anger, and ignorance? All of them. So I'll start with this question of where does loss fit in? You know, you get the Buddhist teachings on impermanence. Really fundamental teaching, right? Impermanence. We think that everything that we have in our lives, people, places, and things are going to stay forever. And we are ignorant often in recognizing that, or not recognizing that what we have, people, places, things, animals, that they're going to pass. Because they are. So we become greedy because we want them longer. We want our shirts to fit longer, but maybe we gain some weight and they don't fit. Right? We want more money, but maybe we keep wasting it on a bunch of dumb crap. So we don't have it. We want better relationships, but maybe we keep treating people like crap, so we don't get them. Right? So we lose things, we lose people, we lose what's important in our lives. You know? And the greed is wanting them to stay there forever, and they don't. The ignorance is thinking that what we have will stay forever. And so the practice here really is to learn to appreciate every single thing you have in your life, because you don't know when they will be gone. You know, we all think we're going to get through today. Maybe. We don't know that. We don't know that we'll get through today. There are people who won't. So anger, as far as ignorance, or loss, I should say, when we lose things, people, places, people, things, whatever it might be, we often get angry at the loss. And we resist it and we fight it. And the anger doesn't bring anything or anyone back. Loss is as much a part of life as anything. We've completely lost whatever happened this morning. It's gone. You cannot get it back. And maybe you're angry about something that happened this morning. The question is, will you carry that anger with you for the next 10 years about what happened this morning? And then the ignorance as far as loss, it's a harsh thing because it can sound really sad and depressing to say that we will lose everything and everyone in our lives. But that's the truth. And if you're brand new to Buddhism, it's important to understand that Buddhism doesn't fix things. It doesn't solve things. It doesn't take away your problems. To me, it points you to the truth. Not truth spoken by the Buddha, not truth spoken by any god or goddess, not truth spoken by ourselves, but ultimate reality. And ultimate reality is that we will lose. We will have loss. So hopefully that inspires us to appreciate what we have. And when we lose, and deal with loss, can that also become something that can maybe help us appreciate more? And can we grow from that and learn from that? Think of all you've lost in the past, and did it really do anything for you? Or are you still angry about it? Does that help?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I look at Buddhism as a huge wake-up call. And again, especially if you're brand new to Buddhism, we often don't want a wake-up call. We want to be hugged and told everything's going to be okay. But this dude came out, and the first thing he said was, hey, all life sucks. You're going to suffer. But with that is also a lot of joy, a lot of beauty, a lot of happiness, a lot of highs, a lot of great moments, a lot of love and appreciation and kindness. All of those things are there too. But if we all focused on all of those all of the time, none of us would be here sitting right now. So I think we should talk about that stuff. Other questions?
Can you have too much compassion?
No. The question was, can you have too much compassion? And my response was no.
I'm thinking of an example of going into an animal shelter and seeing the animals in cages and, you know, overwhelmingly grief, you know, and is that compassion for the animals, or is it my own stuff, or what? I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Well, it's all your own stuff, first
Yeah.
of all. I mean, there are a million examples. Using that one example, often when we see animals like that and we say it's too much, maybe it's too much because we're not doing enough. Maybe we see people on a street corner, you know, pull up to a stoplight, and sometimes we're afraid to look at them. They're begging for food. And we're afraid to look at them because it might point out our greed. So I think we hide behind compassion. I don't think you can have I don't think you can have too much compassion. I think that, you know, I've learned a lot through Buddhist teachings that be kind to everyone, give them compassion, and when they're mean and angry to you, give them more compassion. When we see animals suffering in cages, because we live in a really unhealthy, greedy society, you might not emotionally respond to that very well, but that's very different from having compassion towards them. You might not be able to handle the emotional turmoil, whatever you want to call it, but it doesn't mean you stop being compassionate. No, you pour more compassion into that. What could I do to make a difference in this one dog's life or cat's life right now? Face that compassion. If you open up your heart, it's raw. Life is raw. There's so much pain and struggle going on in the world. Pour out as much compassion as you can, because this world needs it. At the same time, you have to balance yourself, because if you walk into a shelter and there's 50 dogs, it's probably not possible that you can rescue and save and take home all 50 of them, as much as you'd like to, you know? I mean, unless you got some crazy huge farm, you'd be the crazy lady with 50 dogs, right? Or cats, right? Like the cat lady, right? So the compassion is there. The struggle then is how to figure out what to do with that compassion. And what I think the question really is about is that as you continue to pour out more compassion, it hurts because you have so much compassion. But that doesn't mean you stop having the compassion. You figure out what can you do and dedicate your entire life, if at all possible, to making sure no animals suffer. Use that compassion. That's the Bodhisattva practice. The Bodhisattva vow is to be reborn life after life, to liberate all sentient beings, not just crazy humans, right? All sentient beings from suffering. So take that vow to just do what you can to help all animals the rest of your life, every single day. Yeah. Does that help?
yeah, I do volunteer,
Oh, I figured as much, yeah.
but it's still, yeah, if you answer it.
Yeah, good. Other thoughts, questions, meditation, Buddhist practice?
This is my second time here.
Yeah.
Are there practices like that in other times?
Say again, are there
Other practices like that, different days and times?
like that? Do you mean, what do you mean by, do you mean at this temple?
Yes, similar to this one.
Yeah, every night, every
morning.
morning.
Okay.
Yes, you'll listen to some other unenlightened person just like me sitting here telling you a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
Every night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights we show movies, and Sunday nights, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m. Yes. So we have lay people who lead, and I'll touch on this briefly at the end, but every night different people leading different Buddhist traditions, and we all have different personalities, different styles, different schools of Buddhism that we practice. Definitely. You know, and I always encourage people, like there's some people like, they've been stuck listening to me over and over and over for years. And I'm like, please listen to somebody else, you know? The temple I started at back in 2003, they had the nuns and they would move them every 3 years because they didn't want the people to become attached to the nuns. They didn't want the nuns to become attached to the people. They want people to practice the teachings, not make it about the personality or the ego or the person, you know? Yeah. Lots of people love sitting with me. Lots of people hate sitting with me. You know? So definitely. And the schedule's out there. The schedule's on the shrine there, website, Facebook group, definitely. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? One more before we wrap up.
This is
Yeah.
just a follow-up on the discussion on compassion. So I get it for animals, or maybe, you know, for a group of people who need it. But is there a situation in which you continue to give compassion, perhaps to a person or people who are ignorant of maybe your actions or ignorant of their own actions? So shouldn't you have a limit or?
No.
Or maybe there's another term.
No. No. Good effort. A for effort. I get it. I get where you're coming from. Actually, those are two different scenarios, both beautiful. Where you're coming from is the way that most people approach compassion. And where you're coming from is a place to kind of repeat it. Is there a place where you're pouring out, I'm rephrasing this in my words. What I'm hearing you say, is there a place where when you pour out so much compassion and it's being received by people who are maybe ignorant or maybe don't appreciate it, maybe don't want it, that you stop? And should you stop? No. Giving compassion, right? There's again, going back to the Bodhisattva practice, the idea is that with giving, you give without any notion of the giver, the receiver, or the gift. In this case, the gift is the gift of compassion. So if I roamed around and I said, I'm only going to give compassion to the people that are nice, it's the people that are not nice, they need it the most. You can be so kind to people, and they're not going to appreciate it. But that doesn't mean you have to stop being kind. Now, you don't have to physically engage with people that you choose not to engage with. This comes up a lot in relationships, unhealthy, toxic relationships, where, you know, being Buddhist doesn't mean, to use the metaphor of being a doormat. It doesn't mean that if you're in an unhealthy, toxic relationship, that you should just allow the person to physically, mentally, emotionally treat you like crap. No, walk away, remove yourself, be safe, right? But at the same time, give knowing that people aren't, give without an expectation is really what this is about. It's not about giving compassion for a few months and then not being appreciated and saying, well, I'm done giving compassion to you. I'm going to give you anger now, right? Which is different from just removing yourself from a relationship, right? But if you choose to stay with the person or whatever it might be, then give nothing but compassion, no matter how it's received. The alternative is much worse, you know? That's not easy. And I'll close with this thought. Somebody asked my master years ago, they said, do you ever feel like people take advantage of you? And he said, yes, all the time. That's why I'm here. So it's really how solid and strong are we with ourselves? to be able to give without an expectation of anything in return. I kind of adopted a phrase years ago, I don't expect anything from anyone ever. I've been sharing that for years. I don't expect anything from anyone ever. And that makes life so much simpler. It's a tough practice, you know? So, thanks. So with that, we'll join the benefit of this practice is shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most.